Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and today I am going to try out the mini shelf tour idea that I talked about recently. If you're new here, maybe last week or the week before, I kind of floated out an idea of doing what I call the story of a shelf. Instead of doing a library tour, which is way too much and overwhelming, just zeroing in on one particular shelf and talking about just those books, what they mean to me, my thoughts associated with them, and just every now and then kind of have an ongoing series. So I'm going to try it out today. Be careful what you ask for, because a lot of people in the comments said they liked this idea and they wanted to see what I did with it. So here it is. So what I decided to do was to make it kind of random, and I numbered off the shelves and I put the numbers in this hat, beautiful banana hat, and whatever I get, that's the shelf I have to talk about. I thought that would be more fun than looking around and trying to pick out, oh, this is the perfect shelf, and I have all these high-minded things to say about these books. I'm just going to pull it out, and what I get is what I get, and I've got to explain myself when we get to that shelf. So let's just see what we got. Da, 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 da. Number 9. All right, let me figure this out. Okay, I see where number 9 is. It's the top shelf that's over there. So we are going to move over there and take a look right now. Okay, so first of all, we're heading to that shelf that is straight ahead, and the number that I drew is that top shelf. My fiction is organized around the room alphabetically. So the A's start over here, and then we kind of have, oh gosh, my desk is a mess. And we kind of have an interruption for this case full of vinyl, and then we're getting to this shelf right here. So let us approach and see what is up here on this shelf number 9. Okay, it looks like we are at the end of the D's and going into the E's right here. Of course, I picked this awkward high shelf that I've got to try to fit in over here. All right, so here in the corner, let's move this a little bit. Oh, and another thing before I get started, all of my shelves, as you might notice, there's a little space at the end. That's because we added, this is the bookcase that I added recently, and it kind of blends in with the other ones. It's not exactly the same, but it's another one from IKEA that somebody in town was selling, and it blends in. It's kind of just a little bit later version of what we already had. And so when I rearranged everything, I left a little space at the end of each shelf for new books. And I'm trying to be extremely prudent in my selection so that the space lasts for a while. Okay, let's take a look. I'm gonna try to shrink it a little bit. All right, so first we have the Count of Monte Cristo with this nice penguin cloth-bound classic that I got it over a year ago. And if I do a mammoth, that is the one I want to read. But I don't know if I have time. I've overstuffed my March. I mean, right now, I'm already sad that I'm not doing the middle March reading because I have so many things going on, and I don't know. We'll see. I might get to it. All right, then we have, oh, this is plays, a play. The Visit by Dürrenmatt. This is from my, I took a class in theater, or not theater, but like 20th century drama. So this was a book that we read for the class. I think it was kind of goofy. Well, I like this edition though. This is kind of cool looking now. It's kind of like that mid-century vibe. Can't tell you anything about it. Oh, I came up with a new idea. I'm standing on a chair now. All right, then we have Emily Eden. Look, there's a bookmark in it. The Semi-Attached Couple and the Semi-Detached House. This is kind of a lighter author. Maybe Jane, I don't know, is it Victorian or Jane Eyre era? I gotta look inside and see when it was published. I've read these, and then I reread the first one, and I think I left the bookmark in because I was going to reread the second one. And okay, I peeked inside. She was early 19th century. I can't remember where I heard about her. I don't really, this is not an author I hear people talking about too much, but they're kind of light and fun books. And maybe I will reread that second one sometime soon. The first one is about a young couple that's getting married that just really doesn't know each other, and they have kind of a rocky beginning. Then we have Washington Black. I love this book. I think I included this recently in a tag video, didn't I? Anyway, S.A. Edugian, and she was she last year's or this year's chair of the Booker Prize? I can't remember. But anyway, I love this book about a boy that starts on a plantation in Barbados. He's an enslaved person, and he is taken on to be the apprentice to a scientist because he has these amazing art skills, and he's going to illustrate the guy's work. And then they kind of have an unusual friendship, and a bunch of stuff happens, and they travel to a lot of places. Adventure ensues. Here's Middlemarch, that I am feeling sad that I'm not reading for Classics and Company right now, but it's just the timing's not right. But I have read this 2 or 3 times, and it's one of my favorite books. And it's a Barnes & Noble edition. Then we have a couple of these Everyman's Library of Eliot. We have, I guess I need to get closer, don't I? We have The Mill and the Floss, which I've never read because everyone always says that the ending is a super bummer. So it's kind of thrown me off from actually reading it. And Silas Marner, which I have read, but I'd like to read again. I got to move the chair. Bret Easton Ellis, Less Than Zero. This is the only book I've read by Ellis, and I did enjoy it at the time, but I don't think it would hold up whatsoever. Invisible Man. This one I accidentally bought twice, but I narrowed it down and I donated one of the copies. But I didn't know I had it on my shelf because I had never read it, and then my daughter had to read it in high school, so I went out and got a copy, and I thought, you know what, I'll read it too, because I've never read it, but I've always wanted to. And then I looked on the shelf and I had it. So we both did read it, and I really loved it. It's so bizarre and so ahead of its time. I want to read it again. I say that about everything. Isn't that always, like, every time I talk about a book, the last thing I say is either I really recommend this or I want to read it again. But I'm not lying. All right, The Bride Price. Is this kind of blurry? What's going on? The Bride Price. Oh, what a cool cover. Buchi Amachetta. I took a class in African fiction when I was in graduate school, and this would have been in the, when was this? I don't know, the late 80s, 1989, 88, 90, something like that. And anyway, I kept all the books from that class because they were all so memorable, and they were kind of hard to get to. Like at the time, even now, it's not something that's just going to be sitting on the shelf at Barnes & Noble. And I have not reread most of them, but I have just hung on to them thinking that I might want to read them again, or at least I want to have them in my collection. All right, we have... Why do I feel like I'm getting some blur here? We have the writings of Ralph Waldo Emerson, and also an antique copy of some essays. Hang on a second. I think there's some cool pictures in here. Nope, that must be a different book we haven't gotten to yet. These are just old copies I got at a library sale long ago because I thought they're just a good thing to have in my library. No real intention of reading them, but it just seems like something that a American library should have. This is a book I got recently at a used bookstore that I haven't read yet by Louise Erdrich. We've gotten to the Erdrich section. So I have Tales of Burning Love. And then these, there's a third book that goes with these that I don't have. And I used to have them all in paperback, and I decided when I made a big move a few years ago to give away my paperbacks and get hardback copies. So far I have found Love Medicine and Tracks, but I'm still looking for The Beat Queen. But once I get them all, then I'm going to reread them. These are from the 80s. The Sentence is more recent. I absolutely love this book. This is one of my favorite books from 2 or 3 years ago, whatever year that was it came out. And I again, this is way up at the top of my reread list. I love this book so much. The main character, Tookie, who is a woman who spent time in prison where she became a lover of reading because of the kindness of her old, gosh, is it her teacher or her librarian, who sends her books while she is incarcerated and helps her get a job when she comes out at Louise Erdrich's bookstore in Minneapolis. Louise is a character in the background in this story, but it's mostly about Tookie's husband and their family and other people that work at the bookstore, all in the time period going into 2020. And they lived through the first wave of COVID, the riots after George Floyd's murder. It's very of its time, but it's also just really good Erdrich, if you are familiar with her writing. And not everybody loves this book or thinks it's one of her best, but I really do. And I also love the list in the back of book suggestions. That book list in the back is responsible for a couple of random things on my shelf. All right, so we have a few more Erdrich books. The Plague of Doves, which I infamously had on my TBR for 15 years and finally read last fall. And I guess we're moving on. Oh, here's Annie Ernaux, Happening. I got this when she won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and I wanted to read something by her. This kind of a fictionalized memoir of a time when she was in college in the 60s, I think, and found herself to be pregnant and trying to seek an abortion in a time and place when it was illegal, and she couldn't find a lot of people to even sympathize or help her or hook her up with information, and just her feelings of being lost and desperate and how she navigated that time. If I Survive You by Jonathan Escoffery. He was on the Booker list last year, and I did enjoy these short stories. They're kind of connected, but not really. I mean, they're all about the same guy or people in his family. I guess they are connected short stories. I take it back. Liked them, but didn't love them. This was, every time I talked about this last year or the year before, I guess it was 2022. Maybe it was last year. I'm lost in time and space. Anyway, I always brought up Morgan Talty, that I thought should have taken the spot that Jonathan Escoffery got, but no shade on Escoffery. It is a good collection. It just didn't touch me as much as the Morgan Talty. This is a book from my childhood, and I have shelved childhood books that are my own books in with my fiction. If it's my daughter's childhood books, that's a separate section. But George Washington's Breakfast was one of my favorite books when I was a kid, and it is about a little kid who he shares a birthday and a name with George Washington, and he asks his grandmother, well, what did George Washington usually eat for breakfast? And it's a book about research, and there's a librarian in it that helps him figure out the answer to this question. And the last one on this shelf is The Marriage Plot by Jeffrey Eugenides. So I did read Middlesex. I guess it was a library book. And then I read this one, which at the time I liked, but it hasn't stuck with me very much. And I'm not sure if I actually need to keep that book. That might be one, the next time I get crowded, that one might be a contender to be rehomed. So anyway, that is the top shelf here, shelf number 9. I hope you enjoyed this little walkthrough. I could tantalize you by briefly panning down through other shelves on this bookcase that we might get to talk about some other day. But for now, we're going to stop right there. So there you have it, the ramblings from shelf number 9. Let me know if you have read the books I talked about, or if any of them intrigued you, or anything that I could do to make this little occasionally recurring segment even better. I appreciate your thoughts and your comments. Thank you, everyone who has recently subscribed. I hope I will see you back soon. Have a great day.